son. Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, folks, we are back here once again. It is the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have an old friend, someone I've known for more than a decade, who just also happens to be a Grammy award-winning engineer, producer, and studio owner. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Chris Wilkinson.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
I had high hopes for this. Most people, when they join, they have like either their AirPods or they're using their MacBook, like laptop microphone. And the audio quality is, I expected it to be high, but it's exceeding my expectations already. And
Good.
I love that.
Good. It's yeah, I mean, if you're interested, it's a 414 EB with a brass capsule.
I expect nothing less. I'd expect
cool.
nothing less. So I guess we met each other in Berry Hill, running around the studios of Nashville, and I just want to give you a second to like maybe give people a very quick intro about what you do now and the studio that you've built in the UK, and then we're going to go all the way back to before when you came to Nashville. So
cool. So the studio I have now it's a studio. It's also just a general recording company. It's called Balcony, and it's based in Sheffield, England. It is primarily a place for independent artists to come. There it is. Yeah. So it is literally the balcony of a church. So yeah, it's a hope. You know, I like to think it's a homely space where people could come and be creative. And yeah, Sheffield's in the north of England, so we're outside of the London kind of busyness,
hustle and bustle.
The hustle and bustle, which has pros and cons to it. But yeah, it's a great place because it's somewhere that you could be working with an artist that's literally this is their first time recording, and you can offer them a really legitimate, world-class experience as far as what they will hear back from themselves and just the kind of standards that I would expect to have in any kind of studio. It's also a place where I can host artists that are, they expect certain things when they walk into a studio when it comes to basically just general experience and also, signal chain and all that kind of stuff. So it's the studio is where most things happen. I also kind of travel around and do location recording and things like that. Most of my time I am studio owner, engineer, and producer. Sometimes I get to go and just be an engineer on certain projects, which is something I still really love to do. Like other producers will bring me on, I get to engineer, which is something that I've really kind of learned about myself. Is that's actually I really love to do that. But yeah, it's a kind of a place for artists of any kind of caliber and experience. But it's just a homely little studio in the north of England, and it's kind of home to me.
That is the most humble way to explain the beautiful space that you've built. I remember watching you acquire the space and start fleshing it out, and it's been amazing to watch that entire process. But you've really put together a visually striking place that obviously suits your needs, but it's just it's very reminiscent of the former church studios in Nashville that were scattered all over. It's beautiful. I actually kind of want to ask you a bit about like the renovation process. Now, when you got that, sure, it did not look like what it looks like now. And what was the level of fear that you had going into this? Like, how am I going to turn this into what I want it to be?
Well, so when I when I got into the building, there had been some kind of the stuff that would have stressed me out, like replastering and putting in the wall that separates the balcony from the rest of the church. That had been done. So my main anxiety, I could tell that it was going to look good, because basically it's when you look out of basically what used to be an open plan, looking down into the auditorium is now a big window.
Sure.
When you look out of that window, it's like, I knew it was going to look good. My main anxiety about it was going to be what it was going to sound like.
Really? Obviously
yeah,
a big concern. Yeah.
It was pretty big, and it was pretty echoey. And I did, so yeah, that screen you've pulled up right there, the curtains with the dove like tapestry on. Behind that was a big round stained glass window, which looked great, but you could hear that there's a pretty busy road out here. So you could hear the road, and there's another one of those on the other side of the room. So first job was to board that up, and I put behind the curtains, there's like rock wool treatment, and I got that in, and I got some clouds in, and the room was dead, but it had a really strong flutter echo. And it's basically the two remaining walls, the panels you can see behind me, those, and there's another set over there. They kind of fixed that. But yeah, no, it's nice to hear what you said about it, because I had to be really strict with myself, because I had a budget that I needed to stick to, and I was like, okay, I need like the signal chain, or like a handful of signal chains,
right,
that need to kind of be like no compromise, but I can't have endless stuff,
right,
because I spent a decent amount of budget on just making the place feel nice,
Sure.
Yeah, the studio has nicer furniture than my house does.
As it usually does. Yeah.
Yeah, and and there's lots of parts of me in it, like literally the rug in the control room half of the space is the rug from my parents' old living room. The piano that's in here, there's two pianos in here, but one of them is the piano that I had as a kid.
Love that.
And then there's lots of, when you have musician friends that have collections of guitars and things, when they find out that you've got some space available, they quickly ask if you wouldn't mind looking after it. And I was in a very fortunate position where I could basically be like, well, what have you got? I'll look after that. I'll take that Strat. I'll take that Guild. But, I don't think I've got space for, this and that. And,
everything.
There's a good collection of stuff. And when I first moved back to Sheffield and I was looking around studios, the main error that I felt had happened was that there was lots of studios that had quite a lot of equipment, like none of which was either very interesting or really kind of what we'd expect in our Berry Hill days.
Yeah. It's a different world.
So I kind of stuck to that pretty strong rule that if I have something in the studio, it needs to be very, very good, something I really love. And if it's not necessarily hi-fi, it needs to be something that's like really, inspiring. I've got a few pieces of not so fancy gear, but it's stuff that I really like. And it wasn't too bad. Once the flutter echo was kind of the biggest source of anxiety. And I was coming out of, I took a break from doing music full time. And I was kind of, doing Balcony was me coming out of that break and kind of going back into it. So there was the anxiety of, getting work and stuff. But that's proven to be Pretty straightforward, really. So it's good.
Well, I the things that you accomplished in Nashville were pretty considerable, and I'm sure that the people that you work with now are excited that you've been able to bring some of that mentality back there, even with the aesthetic. I know a lot of the studios that we spent a lot of time in, I'm wondering like how much they influenced how you designed your space just because of just a general level of comfort. Like these are the kinds of spaces I've been in for the past few years. And if I'm going to build my own space, these are the things I want to emulate. These are the things I want to disregard. I'm just kind of interested to see like what House of Blues and Sputnik, like how aesthetically they influenced your design process there. Yeah.
Pretty heavily. I mean, House of Blues has a particularly strong.
It's a vibe. You could say it's a vibe. Yeah.
But certainly, like knowing that it made a huge difference on the general setting. I did find that when I first moved back to Sheffield is where I grew up, but I'd lived in America for a long time. I feel like I'd really kind of become pretty American and used to a certain way of like Nashville, way of working in Nashville, way of living. And Sheffield, things can't be too nice. They can be nice, but you don't want to be like, there's a certain level of like flashiness that is not, people are maybe a little less sensitive to it in the States.
Sure.
But over here, in the specific setting of Sheffield, it definitely feels like you can kind of like scare people off by it being too
posh.
Yeah. So it wasn't, I mean, it's not my vibe anyway, but it was definitely not going to be the like super futuristic, minimalist
hellscape that some studios turn into.
Yeah. So yeah, it needed to feel comfortable. It needed to have I've always preferred like soft acoustic treatment. So like I've always just seemed to understand absorption. I've just got on better in rooms that are primarily absorption rather than like refraction and stuff. So that was my approach as far as like treating it. And people, it's actually maybe just last week, I was showing someone the studio for the first time and they said, it's very American in here. And I don't think it was, it wasn't a dig, but it was like not quite a compliment. It's like, it is very American in here. Like they'll be able to tolerate it, but he's just letting me know. And
that's super British right there for sure.
So yeah, a couple of people have said that actually, which is that's not a problem for me. It's funny because there are a couple studios in Nashville, not many, but there's a couple where everything works great. There's loads of like good stuff. It's practically set up in a very good way, but it's not that inspiring to be in. You know what I mean?
Sure. Sterile.
It's like kind of sterile, kind of like a classroom, sometimes. Yeah. Whereas, sometimes I'd maybe be more willing to put up with a few pieces of broken gear or a few less fancy mics for like somewhere with a vibe. I mean, the other thing in Nashville is you've got places that have it all, They have everything. They have a vibe and they have every microphone under the sun and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I think that, House of Blues was how it was decorated, how it was like set up was
that's
just as much
level.
a part. Yeah, it was like, it was I still chat to Gary I still text him all the time.
Well, and those spaces, like when people ask me about my time there, those are the studios I tell them to go check out. A, because they were literally right down the street, but B, because they had the character. They had, maybe it wasn't the typical Nashville character of a studio or what a studio is supposed to be there, but they had their own vibe. And, it wasn't necessarily my style, but I loved all of those plays. I loved the immediate setting that was created when you walked into that place. You're like, oh, I'm getting funky in here. That's just going to happen. Like, I can't not have this be light and fun because of look at all this fun stuff on the walls,
Yeah, it is interesting. I think that it makes me think of a conversation I have a lot with artists when we're talking about the direction they want to go, like production-wise. And often I'll try and encourage artists to like not get caught in the middle ground, go all in. Like in Nashville, it's the classic thing of you often get artists who they've got one foot in like Americana roots stuff, and they've got one foot in like more contemporary, like pop stuff. Yeah. And it's like the middle ground of that is really a hard place to be because you don't really win anyone over, and yes, like aesthetically, I think that it's like that, like House of Blues it was all in for that vibe, it's not just like a couple posters or something. It's like a part of the DNA of the building.
Yeah, very much.
So yeah, I really like wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm a Christian and we're in a church and there's like Christian art is on the wall and like I've got a bookshelf that's full of like my favorite books and stuff like that. And the studio's kind of supposed to be an extension of me. And I just like invite people into it,
I love that. I love that you've been able to kind of turn this thing, and even like you were saying the American dig, not dig. I honestly feel like that's a strategic advantage. You're bringing sensibilities from literally the epicenter of music business and music production to Sheffield. So even if it's kind of a dig, it's always still a compliment. Because that's an experience and a taste that you bring that isn't necessarily available elsewhere in the UK in general,
Yeah, I think that I've felt quite comfortable leaning into that. Like I don't want to be, I've been here like 6 years now, so I don't want to be like that guy that tells you about everything I did when I was in Nashville,
Yeah.
But it's shaped a huge part of me, and I'm happy to be like quite proud of that. And my wife's American, my kids are American, so it's like I definitely feel like I've got like skin in the game across, both sides of the Atlantic,
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, no, yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't shy away from that, and offering the like not even. I mean, you just forget like when you come up the typical like ladder of Nashville. It's just this is the way things are done. Like on a daily basis when I'm working with new artists, like I start talking in numbers instead of chords and. I call a middle eight a bridge. I just can't not. And like, I think a middle eight's such a silly name for it. So is it 8 bars? Probably not. And yeah, stuff like that. So I've definitely got a bunch of Americanisms still in me. And I think that's part of it now. And I'm happy. Even like, yeah, like my kind of go-to signal chain is a Cappy. Which is it's a decently known brand over here, but it's like it's kind of the antithesis of like an American audio sound. It's like this is if there is a way of improving on vintage API, it's Cappy.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like flying the flag for it over here, being like, you gotta don't buy this or that. go get this. And yeah, I'm into it. American guitars, American amps.
Well, everything has its spice. Everything has its flavor. I think one of the things that frustrated me in my time living there is how everyone was so fixated on, oh, well, you can't do that. Oh, well, if it's not running this way, that's not right. And that always pissed me off because it was like, no, this is recording. This is music. There is no one way. It's whatever way you feel like it. It's whatever way sounds best. Are we just going to look at the brands and we're not going to actually listen to the audio that thing is producing? And I'm wondering if that also exists over there, if that's something you have to like battle with, if people come in with preconceived notions like, it has to sound like this and I can't accept any other way. And it's just like, hold my beer. Let me show you what we can do here.
I don't have to fight that fight over here very often. Normally people are like, they're open to then not being a particularly like right way of doing it. And like people want to experiment. People don't want people. This, I'm obviously my experience. My experience is that it's more common for me to work with an artist where they're chasing after how can we do something differently, which was a big like I really kind of like relished in that, particularly when we first moved in. Now it's kind of just it's part of it, but there's an album by an artist called Tom Taylor Biggs. The album's called Sevens, and that was like, Tom is like a true artist when it comes to every kind of like tiny detail of what gets done, but also throwing anything that is established kind of out the window. It's like in my first conversation with him, when we're talking about how we were going to capture a song, he's like, I don't want a microphone to be near my face. I don't want anything to necessarily sound a certain. I don't know how I want it to sound, but I don't want it to sound normal. So if we could just play basically until we stumble on something, and then we'll kind of go. And a lot of that record, the initial performances are him in a room with an acoustic guitar, probably also amped. There'd be just microphones in the room, typically going through guitar pedals because they're the most quick way to kind of get extreme. And I'd just be sending him stuff into his headphones until he kind of got into a vibe, and he'd do a take, and then that'd be it, and then we'd kind of build on that. And yeah, people are really open to that. I think that it's very interesting actually when you pose it like that, because I think in a wider cultural sense, the UK is much more used to, well, this is just how it is, or this is the way we've always done that. And
right,
America is way typically broader culture. We're probably willing to kind of question, well, there might be a different way to do that. We could maybe do that better. We could do that differently. Why haven't we thought of, but yeah, specifically comparing like a typical Nashville session to a typical like Sheffield session, it's definitely the other way around. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that. I found myself in Nashville always been excited about when we were kind of given free rein to do things slightly differently. Like, let's track all in one space. Let's try without headphones. Let's not use a click. All that kind of like relatively basic stuff, really. But it can feel quite feel like quite a big deal to people that have always done it another way. Everything's always isolated, everything's always to a click, everything's always 10, 2, and 6, all this stuff. So when I work over here, that's my go-to is like live band, no click. Let's see where we go. Yeah. Although I have found that there are sometimes reasons to kind of rein things in, you know? You don't have Fred Elticum playing the drums, so we might need to take things slowly, you know? Like, you can't, like, it's really, it's interesting. It's sometimes I'm like, I've become the guy that sometimes will reel people in and like, okay, I know, you know, this might not be as fun, but let's try doing just drums and bass and kind of build from there. And that's just the nature of working with some like less experienced artists, you know.
Sure.
When it's session players, it's always, you have that freedom to kind of push people and stuff. But I've kind of got a really strong. There's a big part of my heart that goes out to like young bands that come and they want to record, and this is like maybe their first experience. And I think it's because I've been able to see people. There's a band that I recorded at my old studio in Sheffield, and literally the first session they still had like school uniforms on, like they came to this, and they were doing what most young people in Sheffield do, which is they were recreating the Arctic Monkeys' first album.
Hey, it's not a bad thing to emulate, I guess.
No, it's not. It's just it's kind of a rite of passage for typically boys that get a guitar for Christmas. You know what I mean? And it's like it's cool. But I've learned to really like, you know what, go for it, because I've like, it's almost just like learning covers. You know, it's these kids do that, and then I've stayed in touch with this band and certainly members of this band. And as I've worked with them, they've gone off to university and they've come back into projects, and it's like they discover the Talking Heads, and they discover you know, like depth about and now like my buddy James, who he's at this point he must be in his early 20s, and he's running one of the most exciting, pretty DIY like record labels in Leeds, which is a city not too far away, turning out like really great, like interesting stuff. He's coming here next month to do a live session, and he was like the kid in the school uniform a few years ago, and it's just like, you know what, if he'd not had chance to do that, like it would have been, you know, that's just all part of his journey, you know.
Sure.
So I'm slow to be like frustrated when it's something can feel like either tedious or repetitive, or like this has already been done. I think that there's certain times when I think that's actually just a valuable process for someone to go through, and if I get to be a part of it, that's sick.
Well, I mean, absolutely. You know, I feel like with so much of recording, there's, for me at least, there has to be some variety and experimentation for experimentation's sake. You understand that not everything you try is going to work, and some things that are tried and true are incredibly useful, and you kind of can default to them for this specific desired result. But for me, it's always been the fun of experimentation. That's why I got into it in the first place. And that's why I still do it. And my question there would be like, what are things that you have tried that you didn't necessarily think, or maybe you saw other people trying that you didn't necessarily think were going to work, but you were like pleasantly surprised? And then the converse, what are things that you're like, oh, this is going to work, and you try it and it did not work?
I don't know if this is kind of a boring answer. It's certainly quite a technical, but middle side. Is it too nerdy to talk about middle side technique?
Not at all. Please, let's get into it. This is what we're here for.
So if anyone doesn't know, middle side is a way of recording something in stereo where you have two microphones, and one is set to record basically the sides of the microphone, and you take that and you split it into 2 channels and you flip the phase of one. And then you have another microphone that's exactly on top of it or below it or basically in line with it. And that pictures like what's in front. Yeah. There you go. Just like that. And some people just seem to be like middle side, like happy. And they just like seem to really love it. And it always just sounds kind of like weird and phasey to me. Like someone's going to probably say I'm just doing it wrong. But I'm pretty sure I know what I'm supposed to do. Although I mixed an album that was just piano. It's just like a classical piano capture a few months ago, and the main capture was middle side, and that worked great. And it was a little bit different. It turned out the microphones weren't right next to each other, but they were the same distance away from the soundboard of the piano. One was up, above the player's hands, and the other one was down so the side one was up top, and the cardioid was down by where the strings cross, down by the player's feet. And that worked really well. But yeah, so that was something that like people would always say, oh, maybe maybe we should use middle side. It's like, no, it just never really works. There's certain pieces of gear I just don't get. Like, I just don't get CL1Bs, which is a compressor. Everyone in Nashville like loves them, and I just thought they sounded awful.
That's one of those things where they're like, "What? You're done? Yeah. You're not using a CL1B? Get out of here!"
Yeah, I just don't like them. I'm willing to be the weird, the odd one out here, but it's fine. I think when you're running when you're in charge of capturing, you have to feel good about what you're doing. And I thought that's one of the tricky things when you come up as an assistant and then as an engineer, and sometimes you're the engineer who's like kind of filling in for someone else, and you end up doing lots of these things. It's like so-and-so uses a 1073 into a CL1B. They record it this way and they have these settings, and that's what we want you to do. It's like when you're first starting.
Right.
It's a really weird place to be because it's like you're literally just running Pro Tools at that point. You're not really supposed, you're not listening, So yeah, it's good to have the freedom to feel good about stuff. Trying to think stuff that I was like kind of like pleasantly surprised by. I think similar to what I was saying earlier is like a few years ago I would have like died on the hill that there is no like click only kills vibe. And I think I'm softening to that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a hard sell, but we ultimately all get there at some point. I've been on this journey with an artist that I'm working with and have worked with for a while. So when he and I were first working together, that was kind of my like thing to him. And he did the thing that is terrifying where he says, a few years ago, you said this, and you have to wait and see what he says. And he said, you said that there's no plugin that can account for like energy. As apparently something that I'd said to him when we were talking about like capturing like a live moment, I think. Sure.
But in the project we're in the middle of now, he really wants to go for a slightly more like pop aesthetic. Mm-hmm. It's like soul and blues, but he wants it to be like crisp and clean,
a little more polished.
Yeah. And we've done that, and we've built it up. He did proper pre-production demos in Logic, and we've just gone piece by piece, being really, into the detail of here's the drums take, here's the, and that's when you end up doing all the things that like you lose all the cool points for. It's like you start to say things like, hey, let's just do this for a safety, or let's just do that because we need it. And like, the like shadow of Vance is like behind me, just like with his arms crossed, shaking his head. How dare you not make a decision? And it's like, well, I don't know. This feels like a good drum take now, but it might not when we start adding all the other stuff. So I need to I need to have a little bit of a safety. And I think I've kind of softened to that. Yeah, just that it's more your general way of working, being okay with, there's a reason that some things are really calculated and slow, and they're not everything is like an organic moment. I still think that there's stuff in there, like I'm not flying choruses and stuff like that yet. I'm still kind of trying to get a performance in there, even if it's relatively calculated and stuff. But
every recorded piece being actually a recorded piece. Yeah. I don't know. It's a funny evolution. I had those same proclivities. I was like, never recording to a click. You got to be crazy if you think you're gonna get anything sounding good that's locked to a grid. But I guess this is also probably part of my issue with Nashville and why I moved. When you're doing folk and Americana, you can do a tempo. You want the odd tempo. You don't want the click rigid feel. You do kind of rely on the performance. But I was never a folk Americana person. I was a metal and hard rock person, right? And I've recorded plenty of hard rock albums and metal albums without a click, and I'll never do that again because it just doesn't sound as good. And to be honest with you, not every drummer can play to a click. But a lot of metal drummers, people who are really good metal drummers, they learned how to play to a click. Some of them did drumline. They're locking an internal grid, regardless of if there's a click playing or not. And it just makes it a little bit easier for that medium. But that wasn't necessarily something that anyone in Nashville was trying to do. And that was definitely part of my problem existing in that place, is that nobody wanted to try the things that I wanted to try. And I was rigid in certain ways. But after I moved to New York, I spent a lot of time producing stuff here. I ended up doing more mastering than mixing, but for the few times that I would go into like bigger studios, I spent a fair amount of time working in Germano. I don't know if you're familiar with Germano Studios. It's a legendary recording house in New York, and watching some of like the top level engineers there work and looking at the plaques on the wall, it sort of started to click. It's like, oh, everything has its place. And in a studio in New York, you will have Americana and metal. Like that's just a common thing because everyone's passing through New York. You'll have the Rolling Stones and, Mastodon, whatever. Like that's just a common thing. And as an engineer in one of those studios, you have to be flexible. Now, I never worked as an engineer in those studios. I was more on the recording artist side when I would be in there. But having my background in engineering, I would always be watching Kenta, who's like the lead engineer at Germano. He's a beast. But just watching him interact with us and whatever we were trying to do, and then in the back of my head realizing this person also had to interface with Keith Richards and Adele and Lady Gaga, and each of those things are very different. And as an engineer, it benefits you to be open to trying things that you wouldn't necessarily try, but also deliberately getting yourself out of the funk of this. It has to be done this way, and records that aren't made this way are terrible. And because that's not true. Like there's plenty of records I've listened to that defy all pre-existing experience of how a record should be recorded, and it's some of my favorite records. And it's you'll get there. And it's okay. It's okay when you do. Like, yes, you have the shadow of some very interesting folks, but like that's a specific style. They cultivated their own sound, and if fortunately for you, you saw that up close. If you need to get that sound, you can do it. You know how to do that. But then also being open to like, well, what if I don't want that sound? What if the person I'm working with doesn't want to sound like that? I'm literally limiting myself to only working with these kinds of people if I, don't.
Yeah.
For me, the hard sell is auto-tune. I'm still not on board. And in New York, people use auto-tune for nothing. Even if the performance is good, they'll be like, let's just make this a little more. But that's the one thing I just can't get over. It's like, come on, just even if it sounds bad, like that's the character.
It's become a tonal like plugin in its own right. I think people, they'll melodyne the performance so that it's correct, and then they'll slap autotune on as a plugin
for the sound
because then it sounds finished, because that's what people are so used to hearing. And I'm with you. I can't. I'm okay if like something is just like not for me. I think I think that kind of comes with getting older as well. Like, I mean, I'm in my 30s, but you know what I mean? Like, it's when you stop being aware of the like big records that are affecting like youth culture, or you are aware of them and you listen to them. Like, there's an amazing artist called Self-Esteem. She's from Sheffield. But she's a pretty big artist out here. And it's a big deal when she releases a record, particularly in Sheffield, because everyone's kind of, everyone's for her. And it's one of those things where I listen to it, I enjoy it, I like appreciate how it's been made, but I don't think she's made that album for me. So it's not going to go into my like heavy rotation.
Sure.
And kind of when people come to me with a project, I'm trying to, as much as obviously like I want to work, I want to get, I want to be busy. If someone comes to me with a project and I can just tell that like either our ideologies about what we're doing just don't line up in the right way, or I can just tell that they want to work in a way that I could give them the number of 2 or 3 other people that would absolutely smash it. I'd rather that happen than me.
Sure.
Like, so yeah, it was interesting being in Nashville when I worked for House of Blues. So I was like on staff for a big commercial studio. Even though we're in kind of the Nashville bubble, all the different engineers coming through.
Yeah,
as you're the assistant,
totally right.
like you start to like, okay, all these people have ways of working. They think that's the right way to do it, or they've, that this is their way, and you kind of need to catch up. Yeah. And something that probably the biggest thing one of the most powerful lessons I learned in the season where I was like a full-time assistant at House of Blues was something Trina Shoemaker did, and there were a couple others did it too, where Studio A, House of Blues, called East Iris now, has a big SSL 9000J. It's a 1990s console. Incredible piece of equipment. It's not sexy as far as like Nashville tracking is concerned. You know what I mean? Like, everyone wants to track on an API or a Neve or a Trident.
I'm trying to find a picture of it, but I don't think I could find it. Go ahead.
But it's a big console, and basically everyone would track through all the outboard gear that's on the side. We'd patch into Pro Tools and then we'd come back onto the console. Trina, who's made some of the coolest records in existence, comes in and her setup is just a list of microphones. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. And I was like, well, what signal change do you want? And she's like, I just put them in the console. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, it works, right? I was like, yeah, it works. It works great. And she would just, as and when things would come up, maybe she would swap out a preamp or, or patch in an 1176 or whatever. But her like head and her ears were just on what was being received, and it's so much quicker to compensate or fix or adjust or enhance that when everything's just right in front of you on a console.
Right.
I'm going to do so many sessions with like really complicated setups where everything is like a mic into a pre, into a compressor, into a different EQ, and then it gets bussed with something else, and it's like, oh, what's the third tom plugged into? And it's like me and the engineer are like looking at the track-up sheet.
Trace this cable, yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think it's the third pull take down, and it's just like in the like heat of like trying to do a proper tracking session, it's not always conducive to it. And I took that on. I remember really taking that on board. Chuck Ainley was the other one, actually. It was like when the band came in to listen, like it already sounded done. So yeah, I try and carry that with me, like get my head out of thinking too much about, what's cool and what's not cool. And just kind of focus on problems and it's the way that, working in the box, putting the time in to kind of prepare like sessions and have them set up in a way that things start to become second nature to you. Having things organized and like all the like really boring stuff, like taking 15 minutes to just like clean a session up and like get the colors right and all that kind of stuff. It's so dull. Like I just want to mix, but once that's done, it just enhances the process so much more. So yeah, sorry, I forgot how we got onto that.
Well, no, that was all on topic for sure. And the thing that I'm thinking as we're talking about this is like, do you think I was at a time I was convinced that more expensive, obscure, complex setups like you were just describing, that was better. That's like the only way you can really get a record to sound good. But definitely with how digital audio has just, I mean, dude, this is an unpopular opinion. I'm sure people will hate this, including you. I think digital now sounds better than analog. There's like maybe a couple pieces of analog outboard gear that I would kill to have, just like standard go-to stuff. But how easy it is to use digital stuff now, and the emulations, like at some point we're going to reach a critical mass. At some point the human ear will not, and we're debatably already there, will not be able to differentiate the difference between an analog piece and a really good emulation. We're almost there. At some point the resolution will become so great the human ear will just not be able to detect that. And do you think, the question here is, do you think there's like a bit of analysis paralysis that comes with having so many options? I mean, plug-in list can kind of be the same way, but when you go into a studio, like the anecdote about East Iris is hilarious. You go in there and there's all this gear and somebody wants to use the board, which is a great piece of gear, but everyone in there's like, what? You don't want to plug in all this other stuff? And that person's just like, no, this board works. It's iconic. There's a reason that that's in this studio is because it sounds good and it works. Do you think there's a bit of analysis paralysis that comes with having or working in a facility with that many options? And is that something that you're trying to avoid in your studio by just having the crucial pieces and then getting the flavors that you want with plugins at your will and desire?
Yeah, I think that it's I think that there's things to take from, like, the complicated setups. I think that the original idea behind that being important is that we're capturing it as it's going to need to be when it's done, you know?
Right.
And there's early digital days, people were doing that. It's like, let's do as much as possible before it hits the computer, because then we've got to deal with plugins and stuff. But even now, it's like, let's capture the sound as it's going to be so that it's reproduced. Like, you know, maybe the session gets sent off to somewhere else, or just a way that the artists and the musicians, they just hear it in like closer to a finished product. I think that was the original like intention.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's audio engineering is such a consumer like based environment where we're you need this plugin to make it, you know, companies are so good at convincing you that you're going to need the particular plugin or the particular piece of gear or to make a legitimate sounding thing. I think that I part of the reason that like my studio is relatively simple, signal chain wise, is because it's just purely from like a financial point of view. It's like, look, I don't want, I know I don't need 8 of the 8 okay things. I need like 3.
One really good thing.
Yeah, or one. Yeah,
8,
one.
you know, random things.
Because we're going to do so much one by one anyway. And there's certain things where, like, being able to bus 2 guitar mics, if you are going to use 2 mics on a guitar cab, being able to bus them together in the analog world is just, it's just more convenient to have one track when you're in Pro Tools, you know? So yeah, I think that I've definitely like, also, you know, when you think about the reason the boards people really love, so everyone like really loves API, because they're so simple, you know? So why are we obsessed with complicating the signal chain if some of the boards that we like are desperate to track on are so much simpler than the boards that we'll like avoid? Yeah, and I think that the whole thing with tape now is just it has been for a long time now. Tape is really just the experience of like is, you know, that's the thing we can offer, and I think now more than ever that is its best selling point. That only gets stronger the way that we can do more now, like with AI and with like recording technology. It offers people a way to step out of that world. And there's so much going on with our eyes when we're working. Like when you bypass a plugin and it goes gray, then you unbypass it and it lights up and the meters move. And it's like, is it getting brighter, or are my eyes telling me it's brighter?
Yeah, no.
You know,
100%.
like it's like,
100%.
Yeah. It's definitely getting louder, you know, they're definitely doing that. Yeah. So when artists come to me and they want to talk about things like tape and stuff, yeah, if anyone says, "Oh, we want it to sound like we want to track to tape because we want the sound," it's like, well, let's just use the plugins, because if the sound is all you're after,
we can emulate that.
We can emulate that. Yeah, and they've emulated the best machines and they don't break. Yeah,
right. You don't have to maintenance them at all.
Yeah. I don't know where the nearest Studio 800 is to me. There's maybe an Atari somewhere in Sheffield, but it's like, yeah, it's, let's just use that. But if people want a different experience of recording, and I think that even tracking into Pro Tools, I've started to realize that actually that's what I offer people more and more, is the experience. I am completely at ease in most, like, I can't, it's odd. I can't think of a time when I've really felt like nervous about a recording scenario. I don't get it right all the time. Like, I'll make changes as and when things are needed. And artists and musicians, well, they'll make requests of me and I'll have to like work to figure things out. But I'm completely at ease like running a session, and I think I'm able to kind of pass that on to the experience of the musicians and of the artist. And I think that's a huge part of it. And I think that's something that they can't do in their bedroom, like working on their own. I think there's a certain level of comfort and familiarity that they can have when people are working in like bedroom studios or home studios, and that's their process. And there's certain things that I can bring to the table when they come to a studio or we go to a different studio, and I can kind of make all that stuff happen for them, and I can make the experience, I can get all the stuff out of the way so they can just kind of focus on being creative. And I think more and more, like, my head's on that. My head's on how is the creative process for them? Like, what's slowing them down? What's stressing them out? What are they anxious about? How can I like?
That?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I think more and more, and I think I don't know whether to tell you this or not. No, I've said it now, so I'll tell you. So my youngest child she's not 2 yet, so she's not sleeping much, which means that I'm not sleeping much. And in the depth of like 4 a.m. doom scrolling, my algorithm is always telling me that, creativity is almost gone, and creative industry is in trouble, and that's kind of where I had this epiphany of, actually, no, I think I offer more, like, even if AI starts to take over large chunks of the mixing process, the bit that I'm interested in is the capturing moments and facilitating human creativity. I think there'll always be a drive for that,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So kind of like, I think that the adjustment that might happen will become less focused on, we'll be less focused on gear and signal chain stuff, because stuff will just start to get really good. Like, I've not heard the Behringer 1073 thing. I'm not sure if I'll ever hear one, but it's probably okay,
Sure.
Things just, technology just keeps getting better, and it's easier and easier to have like high quality signal, but it takes thousands of hours to know all the scenarios that you can run into in a recording session, and now it's as the thing that I do becomes more and more like old school of inviting people to work together in a room, it might be maybe less common, but it doesn't mean it's not desired, So yeah, I think basically what I'm saying is that I've naturally been more and more focused on the experience, and like the gear is important, but like
secondary.
Yeah, it's secondary because it just has to be good enough,
Right.
Yeah.
I when I was going to school in Murfreesboro, all of my professors were like, "This industry's dead. You chose the wrong thing to major in. You're not going to have jobs." And in many respects, they were right. But there's always going to need to be a human steering the ship, even with AI. AI is trained off of stuff we made. Large language models, it's that they're pulling from stuff that humans created or that humans made. Even scenarios where we have highly skilled robots that can do crazy stuff. There's a human that needs to operate that machine still. A human still needs to service it. And I think one of the things, I get the point that I'm trying to say here is that for at least 20 years, people have been saying art and creativity is dead. And probably even before that, we were just too young to recognize it. Yes, the record industry of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that's dead. But to be honest with you, when I hear stories about that time, it sounds like a horrible time. It sounds like a really terrible experience. And I'm really happy that we didn't have to deal with any of that. And, ultimately, humans are going to be driving the ship. Ultimately, there will always be a demand for human art as long as there are humans. And I'm not opposed to AI stuff. I'm a futurist. I love technology. I've always loved the cool and crazy stuff that humans create using technology. But ultimately, it's humans doing it. I don't think anyone wants to listen to music made by machines for machines because we're not machines. Right?
Yeah, I think
the industry shifts. Industries shift and change. And yes, we're getting into like this weird matrix level of technology future, but I just think ultimately everything will balance out again, and there will be some other existential crisis we have about the evolution of technology in the future too. So,
yeah, and I think that the stuff that AI will kind of fully envelop, it's not for the like music fans that are like interested in buying albums or
sure.
They're not interested in the story of it. Like I had a meeting recently with some guys that they want to do music specifically focused on kind of like instrumental stuff that like Spotify would just naturally pull up for like study or whatever,
Yeah.
And in our like research, there are already artists that are, it's clearly just AI because they've done like 50 albums this year or something. Yeah. But it's just kind of like
just
the McDonald's of, it's just I kind of liken it to like, it's like McDonald's. Like McDonald's is undeniably popular, but we all know that it's like terrible.
Barely food. Technically, it's food.
Technically, it's food. But see, but the thing that people forget when you start saying that is that it is very popular. So there's like there possibly will be a market for it, and there are people that will consume that kind of stuff. But no one is like no one feels the threat of like McDonald's on a fine dining or like food as as an art form. It's not it's like we're not worried that like McDonald's are going to come up with stuff that's going to put, Michelin star chefs food out of business. Yeah, it's not a perfect analogy, but you get what I'm saying.
No,
it
actually is a great analogy.
It'll like certain parts of like AI and music will take away certain levels of stuff that's being produced, but it's stuff that isn't really going to be. I'm not saying it's bad either. That's the other mistake people seem to make about is they'll say, well, it can't do this very well. It's like, well, just it'll just take time, and we'll be able to do it well. But like you were saying, there won't. It can only. People will always be interested in the human process of the creation of art and human creativity, and they will want that to be at the heart of what they consume for a large portion of the population, anyway.
Yeah, and again, that the analogy is great because yes, there might be a percentage of the population that just prefers to eat this or consume this, but it's not like no one is. The concept of a burger is not being monopolized by McDonald's. If AI recreated a Da Vinci painting, no one would pay to go see that in a museum. They will still continue to go see a Da Vinci painting in a museum. That's the fact. We're not machines. And, we have these complex things called emotions and thoughts. And that there's like the human experience, like you're talking about. That's why people gravitate towards art. That'll never change. I have seen some AR that's cool as hell. I use AI tools in all sorts of different creative processes. And for this podcast, not necessarily for music, but I'm aware that there are AI mastering applications. I even saw this one crazy thing. It's AI, but it's like a robot at a console. So you feed it your track and then a robot dials in analog gear. But even that's a novelty. No one is like, you know what I mean? Like people are doing that for a novelty or because it's more cost effective. And yes, that might change the dynamic for what people charge for mastering, but ultimately it doesn't beat being able to call somebody and be like, hey, here's what I don't like. You can't do that with a machine, and that you'll never get that. And it's kind of what you were saying before. There's like this psychological component to being an engineer. Not only knowing how to manage temperaments in a studio, often highly stressful situations where money and time are on the line, but there's also, cultivating a space where people can feel vulnerable in creating this thing. And then there's also the, hey, dude, I don't like this. Can you adjust this one simple thing? Yeah, sure, no problem. New bounce is coming your way. Machines can't do that. AI can't even offer that. And I don't know how much you've played around with any of the AI utilities that exist in abundance right now, but it takes a lot to steer it. You have to like really understand how to prompt something to speak code so that this machine or computer can understand and interpret what you're asking it correctly. And yes, that will get better over time, but it will never be as good as you talking to another human being who, at least in like one of our cases, like we've idealistically already aligned with somebody. We know what the end goal vision of this creative project is. You'll never get that alignment out of a machine or a computer or AI. But the question there is really like, what, aside from the actual skills of recording, and you're in a kind of unique position because not only do you have the experience at a high level, but you've had to work with a variety of people of, I'm sure, a number of different temperaments. What is like the psychological component that you bring to the table, and how has that changed and evolved from when you were first starting and then getting in the rooms with big names and and learning how to not only be able to talk to this A-lister, but then also this non-lister, and, you know, to be able to develop enough rapport and trust to that, you know, that's like this component of being an engineer or working in the production side of music that I think people they definitely don't realize it until they have a bad experience. But for me, I would pick an engineer to work with based on their personality and how we vibe, more so than whatever gear they're using.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested if you could like speak to how your mastery or understanding of the psychological component has kind of evolved over your time doing this stuff.
Yeah, I think I've always been relatively like calm, you know, like try to like bring a sense of calm to a room. I'm not like a high energy. Like, I think I realize when it's my job to like hype someone up, and I will do that, you know. Sure. But it's, for me, I'm constantly like towing the line between allowing people, like letting people know that, hey, there isn't exactly a right way to do this, and there's lots of options. You need to balance that kind of mentality, because that gives people the freedom to like ask questions. It gives them the freedom to explore what we're doing. Balancing that with, sometimes you need to be like, at a very basic function, you're kind of just being like, yes, this is good, or no, this is bad, and knowing how to like deliver that appropriately. So yeah, I think that soft skills, if that's a phrase that's commonly used, like having the soft skills to deal with lots of different types of people, I think that's something that has partially just always come relatively naturally to me. I'm comfortable one-on-one with people or in small groups of people, no matter the like emotional charge of the situation.
Sure.
That doesn't really faze me. I think that when I first started, I was just kind of good at being out of the way, and like I always wanted to like anticipate what was going to happen next. I think that's what, when I was an assistant, I can't remember what I'd done. I'd made some kind of mistake, like not a big one, like I was probably like too slow to punch in or just something like that. And like I apologized to the like main engineer, and his response was, hey dude, that's fine because you care. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Not what I was expecting, but I'll take it.
Yeah. And he was like, I mean, yeah, there's people that like do a great job, but they really couldn't care less what we're doing, you know, or they're not interested. So for him, the fact that I actually like cared about what I was bringing to the table or whatever was important. I think that has always, obviously, because I'm bringing it up and it's a long time ago, but that has always stuck with me. And like, I ran into that a lot as I kind of moved up through House of Blues or East Iris, when I was becoming the person who was interviewing and hiring interns and assistants and stuff, and kind of starting to learn like what that's like when you've got someone who's actually very, very capable, but they're
checked out.
They're done. Yeah, they're done. And it's like, you kind of just need to like bless those people on the way. It's like, hey dude, like I think that this isn't challenging enough for you. Like whatever your next step is, you need to jump for it now, you know, before you upset someone.
Yeah. Burn a bridge or really hamper yourself. Yeah.
So now it's like, I try and think, I'm trying to just take the load off of people, like I was saying, like on a very basic level, it's like, what's good, what's bad. I think that something that I had to learn when I started producing and I wasn't primarily an engineer was that I need to like offer my like opinions even when I feel like we're listening and it's like, we all hear that, right? It's like, maybe we don't all hear that. Or maybe that's like, we're so blind to that because they've been involved with this song since it was first written, or maybe it's like a green thing. They're just like, so kind of like learning to speak up and like push into things when things aren't quite right. And getting people to like trust the process a bit, like, that the next step will really kind of like finish it off, but it might feel awkward until we've done it, and kind of being able to push through that. My wife is by trade, she's a therapist. She did spend a lot of time doing youth work, and I've been with her when I've seen her do youth work, and something that I picked up from her was like, she has like full confidence that she could win a group of teenagers who are disinterested. She's like, she knows she's going to win them over.
It's a hard crowd to win over.
Yeah. She knows she's going to win them over. And not only is she going to win them over, she's going to get them to do something that they currently feel way too cool to do. She's going to like she's going to get them to like act silly and be free and play. And watching her like have that confidence in her abilities, and also just like the bravery to like push through the like awkward beginning. It's kind of like I relate that when I'm thinking about, just kind of getting us to like, just hang with me. This next bit is going to sound weird or it's going to sound incomplete, but I just know that this part of the process is going to...
We'll get there.
We'll get there, So yeah, I think it's just, I'm pretty chill. I worked with a guitarist recently who, he told me, I was telling him about, working with a guy who, this was a producer when I was engineering, and he was just kind of one of those old school, like, ball busters, like, alpha, brings everybody down in the room, and that's how he, like, gets what he needs. And I was working... Yeah. Yeah.
There's plenty of them in this business.
I was working with this guitarist and I was telling him some stories about that, and he was like, I really love it. I love working with people like that. I was like, you do? And it's like, yeah. It's like when everyone's too nice, like he's like, he feels way more anxiety about whether he's doing a good job or not. I thought that's interesting. I'm not going to
emulate that behavior.
I'm not going to try that. Yeah, I can't. I'm not that guy. But it's interesting to hear someone say that, actually that's what they want, the one, probably the handful of times when I have had to work under people like that, can quite quickly get to the stage where it is so ridiculous. It's so obviously, like, it's insane. Like, this person is mad with everyone all the time. Like, no one, like, so-and-so is playing guitar at the back of the room. No one is in question that they are a brilliant musician. And he's like, he seems to think that they're terrible. It's like, that's not true. So when it gets to that stage, it's very easy to kind of just remove yourself. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing a bad job. He might yell at me, but I know I'm not doing a bad job. I think that it was I think that when I was an assistant and when I was engineering for other producers, it's like, I would never want to feel like I was genuinely like doing a bad job or like letting someone down.
Sure.
But yeah, some of those like old school guys, it's just funny. It's just kind of funny. You kind of just like, you know what? This is great. Stories for later.
Yeah, seriously, I will be laughing about this later for sure.
Yeah. I had a guy tell me that this is like the second day of like a 3-week session. I was the assistant. He was this big famous producer. And he came in and he was like, Chris, yesterday as I was leaving, I hit your car because you parked in my blind spot. I was like, oh, I did? Sorry. Like, it's like, okay. Yeah, this guy is like on another planet. It's okay.
Yeah, right.
It's fun to watch.
You're never going to win. I'm never going to win.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. That makes it easier. Like, if he'd have toned it down a bit, I might have doubted myself. But as it was so ridiculous, it was like just kind of fun. Yeah.
You know, that's my experience working where I worked in Berry Hill. That was an intense environment, and the attitude there was off the friggin' charts. It was big egos at all times, and I always loved coming to hang out with you guys because even with the people who had the big egos, it toned it down just because that's the power of like cultivating an environment where peace and reason reigns. And you know, definitely in my workings outside of Berry Hill, I have not. It took me a long time to master the skills that you're talking about, and primarily remembering this person isn't mad at me. This person is mad at everything. This person hates their life, and I am just a lightning rod right now. It doesn't speak to me. It doesn't speak to my character, who I am, what I'm about, or the quality of the work that I'm doing. They're just miserable. And, you know, you said some people like working with them. There's some people I've met. I honestly like working with them, and they are like that. It's like once I leaned into the comedy of it, it became a little more tolerable. And there are some times where I'm like, roast me. Please roast me. Like, I didn't get you the right chips. Roast me, please. I'm going to laugh. This is going to be great. But, you know, I really feel like the psychological component to this job is like so valuable. And it's probably why you have been able to carve your own path as, and I'm not like in any way, this is for scale for listeners. You folks have no idea how hard Chris worked. You have no idea the amount of hours I saw this guy putting in. You have no idea how many times I would walk past and be like, hey, dude, you want to hang out? And you'd be like, no, what? Hang out? No, I'm working. I'm working for the foreseeable future. And if I get any time, I'm going to be sleeping. But, you know, those long hours were developing not only the technical skills, but really the psychology. That's why people work with you. It's not because of the technical skills. It's because of your attitude and your approach. And you've always been like a cool and level-headed person. Again, in typically high stress, expensive, time constrained scenarios, that's your competitive edge. That's the reason that someone's going to come to work with you over anyone else, especially now with how everyone has a laptop. Everyone's an engineer. Everyone's got a studio, you know?
Yeah.
How do you set yourself apart? And it's your mindset, and it's because people like work. They like spending time with you. I just never, for the guys that were in this industry and miserable, I never understood why you would pay that much money to work with somebody other than getting their name on your project. And if you have the option to not work with somebody who's miserable, who's gonna, and not even just I'm not talking about the people that we spent time around. I'm talking about like iconic engineers that are notoriously negative people that bands would work with just so that they could have that person's name on the record. am happy to say I think that is dying, just because there's more options and the ability for people to kind of do a lot of the stuff on their own. Those miserable attitudes are what made the industry as insufferable as it was. And I don't know, I'm glad to see it change, and like you and a select number of other people that we know, like kind of being the new faces in that, and undoing some of the trauma that was caused from some of the miserable people. And, you know, I moved to New York. I admit, people here just generally, they're more miserable. It's like a New York stereotype. Okay,
that was the other thing I was going to say.
It's like unavoidable. And that's what I mean to say. Like, there's some people I've worked with where I'm like, that is just hilarious. I love how angry this person is, because I think it's hysterical, and I don't care if I get yelled at because I want to be around that. But it took me a really long time to get to the point where it was like, this isn't a reflection of me. This is a reflection of them. And I'm wondering if there were any experiences that you had where you were like, I'm never going to do that to somebody else. Like, that you get treated a certain way, and from that moment on, you're like, you know what? If I'm ever in that position, I'm never going to do it like that, because that's a bad way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, the project I was talking about where the guy like hit my car and blamed me for it, like, that's for me, that's the template of like, don't treat people, you know, even though it was so silly. I guess I was relatively like lucky in the way that like I was never kind of, that was definitely the like exception to like my experience. Like,
sure,
even some very stressful, like high pressure projects. Yeah, I was very like fortunate with how people treated me when I was coming up, and then even when it's like established. I think that I thought of two things actually while you were talking. One is, sometimes this is more of an artist situation. Typically, when an artist comes with like all the baggage of all the other people and all the like a rider or whatever, you know, all the expectation of who they are, what they're going to be like. I realized that actually a lot of that pressure is not coming from them, and a lot of it can come from the managers and the assistants, and everyone's definitely kind of looking after themselves. I did see, that's made me think of another. I saw a personal assistant to an artist be very scared of the artist they were working with, and I just thought that, like, that's crazy. Well, I don't know why you'd put yourself in that position, but I think a lot of the time the demands of people can come from basically other people looking after their jobs. You know what I mean?
100%.
So and so says they like this kind of coffee or wine or cookies or whatever, and then from then on out, that gets added to the ever-growing list of demands when this person goes anywhere, you know, for any length of time. So I learned to kind of like take people, particularly artists, like big name artists, to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt and see how they interacted. And there's one particularly, like, the guy was like known as being particularly like prickly, and he was just like the sweetest guy. Like, I don't know, like, I think it's just all the stuff around. The other thing I thought of was, I think I do have to be, when someone is learning from me, like when they're learning what I do, I need to remember that I'm not talking to me, because I can be much shorter with myself, you know?
Yeah, sure. So as well,
I need
sure.
to, it's easy for me to I need to offer the same patience and grace to someone who is like, they're so like, they don't, when they look at a Pro Tools screen, it does not look the same way that it does when I look at it. You know what I mean? They've not had years of staring at that thing and just understanding it. And if I can kind of stay the course and make sure that they are like taken care of, they will become like, you know, it'll help me, it'll help them, it'll help everyone. So yeah, I think I've apologized to, like, I don't think I've ever acted like crazy, you know what I mean? But I think I've probably said,
that's not in your character.
I think I've
100%.
said to someone at the end of the session, like, hey, I'm sorry if I was short when we were doing those punches or whatever, but I was like, that's on me, not on you. You're doing a great job. You know what I mean? Just like making sure you kind of make sure that everything is established, and that it's like you said, it's like that we're kind of saying bye-bye to like being mean as the desirable, you know, asset to an engineer. So yeah, I think I've seen a few. I think I had it pretty easy. Like, I think I had enough to kind of know it was out there, but I never kind of got like, I think that there was probably a handful of sessions where I was going in, and this would all have been assistant days, probably, or at least like staff engineer days at House of Blues.
Sure.
I don't think I really experienced much once I went freelance. There's probably a handful of projects where I like kind of went in the morning, kind of like had to like psych myself up and be like, okay, I can just, you know, yeah, you can do it. Like you were saying, like the guys that came up in like the 70s and 80s when they were like assistants then, and even engineers, like, yeah, you would not get away with that now. So I think I had it pretty good, and I hope that I just, it is hard. I like one of the struggles I have at the moment is I'm busy, the studio's busy. I don't really have the freedom of being able to slow down. I would love to be able to slow down and train a few people up. So I'm kind of working out how that's going to be possible. There's like a handful of people that have like come and shadowed me over this past year, and they would all be great. I just need to be able to kind of give them the time. And no one uses like everyone uses Logic. Like no one uses. But like you go to a proper studio, and it has Pro Tools. So it's like we have Pro Tools.
You need to be literate in Pro Tools.
Yeah. And it's like, Logic's £200, and then it's good forever. I was like, I know. It's Pro Tools are gone.
It's also, Logic. It's just Logic. It's $200, and that's it forever. That's why,
So yeah, getting people to like that's the biggest struggle for me is when people want to help out. It's like, it'd be really cool if you could run Pro Tools for tracking or do edits for me, or whatever, do all that, organize sessions, all that stuff. But getting people to the point where it starts to be helpful and not just like slow me down.
Another drain of time.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be cool. I need to figure that out actually. It'd be cool over the next like year probably there's maybe a few changes, and Balcony will become like a company rather than basically like me in a studio. It'd be cool to kind of see that happen, and just remember that. I mean, I was like so green when I started. It's crazy. Like, when me and Ed first started at Sputnik, we were like supposed to be interns, and day one we were assistants. You know,
trial by fire for sure. Over there. Yeah,
yeah. It's like okay, like go, and at the time, Mitch had the like 80 series Neve. You know, it's like a Neve 16 channels of 1073s and a 4 2254 compressors, and you know, it's like the console anyone would want.
Yeah,
and it's got above the faders this quite a big white strip. You know, where you label the channels. And he asked me to just start labeling the channels. And I just took a Sharpie. I started writing on the board. Like, I didn't put any tape down. I just... it was like £1 million console or something. And Mitch just thought it was the funniest thing ever. You know? I think that might have been my day one.
The vibe over there, I mean, particularly with Mitch, the vibe over there was nothing but good times. Like that, so like you are right. You did luck out in the sense that that could have been really bad. Had that been another producer, another person's home studio, that could have been really bad. Yeah. Is it still there? Is the Sharpie still on that board?
No. So being a tape studio, they had alcohol, and alcohol got it off.
Yep.
So I looked out. Yeah. Yeah.
Damn,
I think
that's
about
still
that
scary.
now. It's just
That's amazing.
I'm the first time a session is a tracking day, and one of the session players came in, and me and Ed were both on the session. So for listeners, Ed is an amazing producer.
Shout out Eddie Spear.
He's in the stratosphere. He and I moved to Nashville together. We were both assisting a session, and a session player walked in, and he kind of met us, and he turned to Mitch, he said, "British interns, nice." like we were a commodity. Like, nice touch, you know, like we were a piece of gear.
What a rare piece of gear. Exactly.
What a rare piece
exactly
of British interns. Yeah, you're right though. They're like such cool times. And I think that we were like young enough to like take the shot on it and not realize like the magnitude of it, you know. But we knew enough that we like gave it our all, and it kind of made the biggest difference for us, really. Because the reason I got hired at House of Blues was because I'd been assisting for 6 months at Sputnik.
Yeah.
There were interns at House of Blues that had been there way longer. And
I was an intern at House of Blues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was an intern at House of Blues for a minute. Yeah. And I remember there being a couple guys there that had been interns for like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
They interns, not getting paid at all, showing up for free.
Just happy to be there. So I'd been there 6 months, and then I got the gig as a staff engineer, or assistant or whatever. But yeah, that's thanks to Mitch and Vance and lots of.
You knew what you were doing, and again,
that's what it was. I see the predicament the predicament I just explained about not knowing Pro Tools is basically I solved that for the studio manager. Is that like he had a bunch of interns, none of which had run a session before, but I'd been over at Sputnik, and I'm not saying I was like ready, but I was his best option, and then I gave it, I went for it. So it's good.
Yeah, and again, just for people's understanding here, you're being a little too reserved about how much time you put in there. I mean, I remember, especially when I moved there, when I was living at 2024, whatever that address was, just up the street. Even late at night, I'd just be walking around the neighborhood, and I would see you running back and forth between rooms, and that really like was your and Ed's life for a while. It was not like as glamorous as anyone might think it sounds. It's a lot of hard work. It's not that you knew how to use Pro Tools. It's that you knew how to use Pro Tools around big name artists, and when the pressure was on, and feel confident about conveying that confidence to people who need to be conveyed some confidence. So it's not, it's, I don't think, and this is no disrespect to any of those other guys, but none of those other guys could have handled that pressure. None of those other guys could have handled the requests with the confidence that you did and you could. And that's, you know, whether you felt confident or not, you conveyed the confidence, you powered through. There's no way out but through kind of mentality about it. I don't know. There's something to be said there. And even then, like,
thanks, man.
We all had strong work ethics at whatever we were doing, but even then I could recognize that you, like, I've met very few people in my life in all the industries that I've worked in who have the type of work ethic and are as diligent about continuing to evolve their skills as you. And it's again, it's just been super cool to watch you carve your own path.
Thanks, man.
It's scary to do that. It's scary to kind of to bet on yourself. But it's been really cool to watch you do that, and you know, all the success you've had along the way. So I guess I want to make sure I ask you this question, because it's like putting it out there. Like, we're going to manifest right now. You know, we're going to do a manifestation.
Okay.
Who would be an ideal, like, top of the list? Who would you love to host in your studio? And that can be an artist or an engineer that you haven't already worked with. Who would you, like, if somebody called you tomorrow, you would drop everything and be like, yes. Pre-existing sessions canceled. Pre-existing dates canceled. You're coming here and we're doing this. I'm capitalizing on this experience.
That's a really good question. I mean, it's a, unfortunately we lost him like a few years ago, but it always used to have been, it would always previously been Bowie, you know. It'd be like, if I could have been around him being creative, I would have felt like
it doesn't get higher.
I can't witness another, you know.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about, like, someone who, like, they're, like, still making unbelievable records, like Nick Cave would, yeah, I would love to work on a Nick Cave record or something that, or like if he was producing something, you know, I'd love to engineer it. Or David Byrne. Yeah. Those would be up there. You know, bands wise, I don't really know. Like something that, I mean, this is super, I don't know, this is kind of cheesy and you know, heavily nostalgic, but it would be so cool to do like another record with like the session play, like my like favorite session players from like my time in Nashville, where like they're the band. Like I would love to take an artist from over here and go track, you know,
over there,
down over there, and use those like guys and girls as musicians. That would really be like, I think I'd maybe probably be too emotional.
Yeah, sure.
Because it feels like it feels like that chapter is kind of, so when we first moved over, I had a green card, and I was able to, like, we weren't fully like residents here, and I was able to like go back and forth a bit, and then eventually that stops when we were like, because we didn't know how long we were going to be here. When we kind of realized we were staying here long term, that window kind of closes, and you have to kind of be like, no, I'm a resident of the UK, and now it's tricky to go over.
You don't want to be here right now. You don't want to be here right now. That's a whole other podcast that we would have to do. That's a whole other podcast. But you don't want to be here right now.
Yeah. But I would, I like big iconic artists, Nick Cave, David Byrne, kind of dream scenario is like one of the people over here that I like really believe in that would use that kind of band, go over, track it at East Iris or Ocean Way or somewhere, you know, and just kind of have that, yeah.
It'd be like the ultimate full circle, like closing the circle kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be really cool. And to be in charge and to bring a lot of what I do here to there, you know, to kind of shake off just enough of the like the Nashville stuff that can get kind of irritating, you know, to slow the pace down just enough to give people like the creative freedom that is like typical in sessions over here and is less typical over there. Then have Eddie mix it. That'd be cool.
That'd be super fun for you guys.
That'd be really cool. I'd be sat at the back of the room giving him really awkward mix tweaks just to wind him up.
Finally, my opportunity has arrived.
It's interesting. Like you're really, really sweet about everything you said about, you know, when me and Eddie were over there, and I think I owe a lot of that to him. Like we always used to talk about, when we were at university together, we watched a lot of Star Trek, and we like I'm Spock and he's Kirk. You know, like he is like
sure. Okay.
Let's go, you know?
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, let's figure out.
Let's be a little more logical about this. Yeah.
And it works really well. And we text pretty often. And really thankful for everything that like he's taught me over the years. And I still like, even now when I have like hey, have you ever used this? Or what do you do when you're stuck with that? I just text Ed and he just texts me back. And it's like,
yeah.
It's just nice to have, you know, he's super busy, I'm super busy. When I am in the States, we'll try and catch up. But yeah, cool. I hope that answers the question enough.
No, that was great. And
okay.
You know, I just think it's interesting just knowing all the people that I know, and usually it's funny because the people that I know that have operated at the top level of whatever they're doing, usually the people that they want to work with are not the people that I would think that they'd want to work with.
Oh, really?
All of your choices were great. And I think it's just one of those things where like 10 years ago, that was a pipe dream, but anymore, it's just a matter of time. You know, you continue to do this and you continue to build a name for yourself. It's just a matter of time. There's like a component of when I first moved to Nashville and was around that, where it was like us and them. It was like these people over here are my other buddy who's an engineer who I know from up here. He's like he does more like hip hop stuff. He's done a bunch of Wu-Tang Clan. He's Redman's engineer.
Cool.
And he kind of articulated this in a great way. So I just want to share it with you, but he's like, there's this idea where it's us and them. You know, there's these icons of art, and then there's us. And the more time you spend in these fields, the more you realize it's not us and them. It's just that they are just people too. And you spend enough time doing this, and you stand on your work, and you leave people with a pleasurable experience, it's just a matter of time before you're being referred to as one of them. And we used to think it was this unattainable thing. I definitely felt like that all the time in Nashville, being around the people we were around. I was like, man, I do not deserve to be here. This person should not be talking to me. They should be talking to literally anyone else. But that's something I've learned to kind of like grow out of, in the sense that it's like, I am here for a reason. I got hired on this job for a reason. They want me here, whether it's my skills or my attitude or my problem solving. They want me here, so that makes me a part of this team. And not every team I've worked on with people here in the entertainment industry in New York has been like that, but I was also super fortunate to get in with a bunch of like really good camps and people who always respected me. And it's 10 years ago we would have felt like so far removed from it, but anymore it's like this is just a part of our lives. We're in these rooms for a reason. We got specifically asked and we're being paid to be here. So
yeah.
I guess this will be the last question. I just want to make sure that I cover this one too.
Cool.
What are some words of advice or encouragement that you could offer somebody who is going to carve their own path in the entertainment industry? Like, what are you telling little Chris?
Yeah. I think it's like two. I think there's two like fundamental stages that I kind of like went through. One is we touched on this earlier, is find someone or something that does what you want to do, and just be okay learning that. Take yourself out of it. Because I think that even as a young person, even as a teenager and as a student, I was really focused on the idea of authenticity and not like everything had to be an original idea. And I think that that got broken down as I learned the value of just kind of letting go of my own sense and just allowing myself to be taught by someone, and just kind of, okay, this is what they would do. And that gives you the skill set to then, when you kind of get asked to do the next stage, so-and-so's not available, but you understand the process, so you need to fill in. It gives you the ability, like, you won't have the years of experience to actually make those decisions, but you can do what they would have done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like the other side of that is basically that gives you the freedom to then kind of grow and learn and become your own thing. Whatever that is, whatever field we're working in, that gives us the building blocks, and how long we hold on to those, and how we stick to those initial, like, that foundation is dependent on the circumstances. But that gives us our platform. That gives us our, like, that's your foot in the door. Is be available and be willing to learn. And then after that, I think when it comes specifically, when you say like make your own path, like, be willing to like consider what you value and make sure that isn't what you're good at, or what you're not. It could be, but like, I think sometimes we equate what we're good at as to what we value. You might be good at something that you really don't care about,
Right.
So you need to know like what you care about. And for me, I got to a point in Nashville where it's like what you were saying, by the time you've created a goal, by the time you meet a goal that you've set, you've already created another one, and it's like a carrot and a stick kind of situation. And it's like, what do I value? I value like the like quality of my life and my time here, and what's going to allow me to do that. And for me, it's very like personal stuff. It's like family stuff. Living in Sheffield, it is it's trickier to, you know, make a certain figure or amount of money per year, but I get to be on a regular basis, I get to be way more creative than I often would have had chance to. And there's still opportunity for me to do the kind of stuff I was doing in Nashville. It's just not, I don't want to do that every single day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like, allow yourself to just learn from whoever's doing what you want to do. That becomes a platform which you can base a career on. And as you're going through that journey, like check in with what you value and what you want to value, and like, is this journey, like, how are you going to make sure that the roads kind of like end up together, you know? If your values are going one way and your career is going another, like, how can we kind of bring that full circle? Yeah, sorry, I don't know if that's a bit too vague, but it's quite a vague concept, maybe. Yeah.
It's not, and I mean, I find it hyper relevant, and I think in general, the older I get to, the more I feel the same way. It's like you have to force your life around the things that you value, because if you don't build it around things you truly value, it doesn't mean anything. You're going to end up miserable. We've seen it 100 times. We've met so many people in our life who didn't do that, and they're miserable people, and you know, and no amount of money is worth being that, to me anyway, no amount of money is worth being that miserable.
And the catalyst for me figuring that out was, it's like you're saying, like, it's knowing people that had basically achieved everything that I could possibly dream of achieving, and just kind of been witness to how unfulfilled at least that part of their life was. You know, they might be getting fulfillment elsewhere, you know, but it wasn't this thing that they'd, you know, and some people that might be their thing, you know, like, but I recognize it in myself. I recognized that it was like, I was enjoying it. I was thankful for it, but it was not giving me like a sense of worth, or it was not giving me the sense of accomplishment that I like think that I like was after.
Sure.
And I've been really fortunate that I mean, yeah, setting up Balcony is really kind of like bringing my like love for making music together with my own like heart and my hometown, and like there's so much that like comes together, and I'm super thankful for it, to be honest. Yeah, it's cool.
Words of advice from a true sage, everybody. Mr. Chris Wilkinson, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I'm going to have the links to your socials and Balcony Recording Company site and socials in the descriptions below. Please, people, like and follow, check out his work, and we'll catch you on the next one. See y'all, folks.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business, or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.